Good morning. I wonder how many of you have made a Mondo bag before. I've made a number of them, and there are other YouTube videos out there showing you how to make Mondo bags. So I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but I have some ideas for some variations that you might not have thought of before. I've made a number of them. I like to use harvest tones to make them, and I always like to have it darker at the bottom and lighter as you go up, because that's where it sets and gets dirtier, and it just adds more interest. And then I like to make them with jewel tones. So this is one that I have with jewel tones. I love these colors. And I've also really enjoyed making black and white with a sprinkling of red. Now in here I have some red and black prints and then some solid reds. And so I just think this is really, really beautiful. Now, one thing that I have done recently, I had a project, in fact I have a video on it called Design Your Own Bag. And in that video I use this fabric. Because of the way that you make the bag, you end up with all these holes all over, and you end up with a lot of scraps. So I took those scraps and cut 2.5-inch squares and made this Mondo bag right here. So this uses the prints from that particular fabric and another matching print, and then just basic blues and purples to tie it all together. And I think that turned out really nice. Well, today what we're going to do is a variation on the black and white and red theme. And we're going to have black and white and then half square triangles. And I chose the primary colors. So for each panel, and it takes 4 panels to make a bag, each panel has 1 blue, 1 green, 1 yellow, and 1 red half square triangle. So that's what we're going to work on today. Now, to make these bags, you need a grid. You can check out online and write down Mondo Bag fusible grid, and there will be those available. You can also just write down 2.5-inch square fusible grid, because that's what they use for watercolor quilts. So either of those would work. Truthfully, I just do my own. So all you need is a sheer weight fusible interfacing and a fine marker, not a pen or pencil, but a marker, a real fine tip marker. And then get your ruler and lay it out, and on the fusible side, draw a 2.5-inch grid. It really doesn't take that long, and it's a lot cheaper. And you need 12 blocks long and 4 blocks wide. Now, the nice thing about drawing your own grid is that if you ended up using, say, like a charm pack, you could adjust that grid to fit a charm pack. So I have these all drawn out, and we're going to fuse the blocks onto these fusible pieces. Now, as far as the half square triangle, here's the deal. You need to, for each color, you need 2 pieces. You need a red or blue, yellow, green. You might want to decide you want all red or all blue or whatever. Doesn't matter. And then, so you have a black or black print, and put it right sides together, the plain with the black. And then, now this is 4 1/8 inch square. That's important. All right. And then you just sew 1/4 inch seam all the way around the outside. And then you take your ruler and your embroidery cutter and cut across like that. When you open it up, you will have a 2.5 inch square. So then you want to press it toward the dark side. All right, clip off the dog ears here, and then you have your block that you're going to incorporate with the other blocks onto your grid. Okay, 4 1/8 inch square, sew around the outside with a 1/4 inch seam, and then cut diagonally. And so if you're going to do, like I'm going to do today, 1 green, 1 yellow, 1 blue, 1 red on each side, then you need 4 blocks, 1 of each color, okay? I have started to lay out some of the blocks. Now I have 2 panels here. Here's one, and here's the other. Okay, I like to work 2 at a time. And make sure that the grid is fusible side up, because we're going to fuse these blocks onto this grid. And I have a box here of all kinds of blacks and whites, and so I have started laying them out. But before I get too far, I want to go ahead and put these blocks in place. And so I have a red one here, a red one here. I'm just indiscriminately putting them in place. A blue one, let's see, let's put this up here. I try to make them go different directions. When I make these blocks, I try to make sure that I use a different black or white with each of the solid colors, so it just gives a little more variety. Now maybe I'll do this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of these blocks with my blocks here, and then we're going to fuse them in place. I have laid out all of the squares, but I noticed something, and that is, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I have all of the triangles either pointing southeast or northwest, and so I'm going to turn a few of them so that they point northeast and southwest. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So I am ready to start fusing it. Now I tell you what, you're going to use a dry iron, medium heat, and take your time, and you're going to kind of reposition them as you come along, and until they're all fused well. And do that to all of them. Take your time and make sure you get it fused properly. I have fused the blocks onto the fusible grid, and now I'm ready to start sewing. I'm going to set my machine for 1/4 inch. There are various ways of doing that. I have a 1/4 inch setting here. What you want to make sure you have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to go fold it against itself, right sides together, and then we're going to start sewing down the length of each one of these. It just naturally folds right where you need it to go. After you have sewn, there will be 3 seams lengthwise. So after you've sewn those 3 seams lengthwise, press them all to one side and then do the cross seams. Make sense? Good. Chances are, after you finish your lengthwise seams, you might find a problem, and I have found a problem. This particular square flipped over onto this row, and so I'm going to need to take out this seam and put it back where it belongs. Okay? Make sure you do a thorough inspection to see that all the seams are lined up, and then what we want to do is measure because everyone's going to be a little bit different. Mine is 8.5 by 24.25, and so you use those measurements to cut the lining pieces. I like to cut my lining pieces about 1/4 inch narrower and 1/4 to 1/2 inch shorter than the front of the Mondo bag, because of the thickness of all the seams on the inside. And then I like to use medium weight fusible interfacing for the lining. So I already have those ready. And so now what we're going to do is arrange these, take the dark end and put it like this. We're going to make that shape, and then we're going to put this one here and put this one here. So you have one going north, one going east, one going south, one going west. Okay? And now we're going to sew this together. I'm just going to put one pin in there to remind me of what goes together, and sew this together. After I've done that, I will sew these 2 halves together. I should mention that I like to use an overcast stitch when I do that, and also that on these parts you end 1/4 inch from the edge. And then we're going to iron this flat, and then do the same thing with the lining. So we're going to press this flat, and then it's time to go up the sides of the bag. Now, when you do the lining, make sure you leave a spot to turn the bag right side out. But right now, we're going to do the top part here. So we want to line this up like this. And this is where it's helpful when you left that 1/4 inch seam, 1/4 inch opening. All right, let me get this first one lined up and pinned. Okay, and then I'm going to take a pair of scissors, cut, like that, snip it so that it will lie flat. Okay, so here it goes, and then I pin every once in a while, and when you come to the end, you will see that you have 4 extra blocks from the other side. So it will only come up to so far, and then you have 4 extra blocks. Okay, so now I'm going to sew this with that overcast stitch, and I'm going to do that for all 4 sides, and I'm going to do the lining as well. But like I say, go just a little ways, a couple inches, and then leave about this long a space to turn it right side out before you finish that seam. I always do it on the very first seam of the lining so I don't forget, because I have forgotten, and it's no fun to take out overcast stitching. When you finish sewing those sides together, you want to turn it right side out and just check those corners to make sure you don't have holes or too deep puckers. So, and then what we want to do is lay it out and press those seams. And you want to do this on both the top and the lining. And then before we slip those two next to each other, I want to show you what I do for a handle. I did a YouTube tutorial on log cabin tote bag, and part 2 I showed how to do a handle using fusible foam, but I actually prefer this method. We are fortunate to live close to a ribbon factory, and so we get this grosgrain ribbon very reasonably. And so what I like to do is, my handles generally are 25 inches long, and I'd like to take 2 of them because one is just not quite thick enough. I like to take 2 of them and spray them real good, because I want to use a steam iron to iron them, and that will help them shrink a little bit. And so I'm going to press them. I learned this trick from Carolyn, a friend in Quilt Guild, so I'm thankful to her. I love this method of putting together straps. So I'm going to take 2 of these and put them next to my fabric, and then I'm going to line it up. I'm going to turn up this edge, it's about a 1/2 inch, and press it. Fold it over. Press it again. Fold it over. Press it again. And then you have one final lip that you're going to fold over and press. I cut these strips 6.5 inches wide and 24 to 25 inches long. Okay, now that I have that pressed, I'm going to go back and take my clips and slip this underneath like this and clip it together. And then I will sew on the sewing machine right close to the edge, and then echo sew 1/4 inch further in from that. Okay? I have finished the straps, and I pressed it again with the steam iron when I was done. They do tend to get a little vinnish. That's a word my mom used when it was, you know, kind of like this. And I don't know if that's a Pennsylvania Dutch word or if that's really a word, but anyway, they do tend to become a little bit like that. And so it wouldn't hurt to use a walking foot when you're making them, but they generally just iron out okay. And then I want to trim off the ends, make sure that my 2 straps are equal. in length. Wow, there's quite a difference here. Okay, and now I want to pin them to the top like this, and then go across to the other side. Let me just do that so that we've got it down and you understand what's going on. And then to the next one, make sure you don't twist your strap, and pin this. And then we're going to sew across that strap using a overcast stitch. I like to make sure that's really, really secure. And then after that, we're going to slip this inside the lining and pin it all the way around. I have finished sewing around the edges, and I should mention when I said overlock stitch, that was just for attaching the handles. I used a straight stitch all the way around the edge. And so now let's find my birthing hole, and there we go, and start pulling out the rest of the bag. Now, before I sew up that opening, I'm going to check, first of all, the handles to make sure the handles are okay. All right, good. And then I'm going to check these corners to make sure that the corners are okay. I've got some extra threads here. All right, looks pretty good. Okay, and so I'm going to, I think I'm gonna, this one isn't lying flat, and I think I'm gonna reach in there and clip that seam so that it lies flat. Then after that, I'm going to just pin all the way around and do a top stitch 1/4 inch from the edge. Oh, then we have to close off that opening and we'll be done. So there you have it. And I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. These bags hold a whole lot of stuff. That's why I call them my whole lot of bag on Etsy. I do sell on Etsy. It's Martha's Market, all one word, no apostrophe. And so I urge you to check that out. Also, I have other YouTube tutorials, baskets, some tote bags, and even one called Bound for Heaven. Another one where my husband and I sing a song. It's Isaiah 41:10 set to music. So check those out, and I'm hoping to see you again for another tutorial sometime soon.